Thanks for watching. Sutherland's Innovation Labs have been working on robotics for about 4 years, and the market seems to be catching up. What you see here is the Gartner hype cycle, and robotics is right at the top of what they call the peak of inflated expectations. So is robotics the silver bullet that will radically transform your operations? Many organisations have tried to increase efficiency by implementing enterprise resource planning platforms with the aim of creating straight-through processing. But ERP is extremely expensive and takes months, if not years, to roll out. There are currently 1,800 shared service and captive organisations in Europe, and 80% of them are not even close to completing their ERP programs. If this sounds familiar, it means that you still have people transferring information between different systems, known as swivel chair processing. That is, the manual transaction processing that acts as the glue to make your businesses work. You should think of robotic process automation not as a silver bullet, nor as an alternative to ERP, but as a bridge that comes with an ongoing operations package that addresses the nightmare of interfaces. In this way, you can achieve many of the same benefits without the technology or process changes that ERP implementations require. Some RPA technology components are not new. Macros and screen scraping have been around for years. But RPA provides the programming capability to turn tactical productivity tools into fully automated operations. If you like, macros on steroids. RPA works regardless of location. It doesn't matter if your business operates in Asia, across the Eurozone, in Poland, the UK, or the US. RPA helps increase efficiency and drive revenues to your bottom line. Why are we in Poland for the conference? It's because ABSL members are ideally positioned in both skills and location to capitalise on the increasing global trend of moving work back to nearshore locations. Professor Ilan Oshry has polled 200 US and European businesses that had offshore work, and a staggering 40% have brought work back in the last 3 years. Given Poland's already strong position, and because RPA is not reliant on large numbers of people, I predict that Poland can double the amount of work that its services companies transact by 2018. And if you think I'm exaggerating, it's not only me that thinks this. Gartner, Ovum, HFS, Everest and IDC are all saying the same thing. So what do we mean by robotics? Our automation systems are not real humanoid robots, nor are what you would know as artificial intelligence. In fact, they're not intelligent at all. Think of RPA as a virtual user using the same desktop to access standard applications as human processors do, and they therefore follow your existing business rules. As virtual machines, they sit on your data center, or on ours, or even on the cloud. But how do they fit into your business operating models? If you're like most companies, your systems and processes sit at the heart of your operation. Above that, you have your various workflow tools, and above that, your analytics. Binding these elements together, you have people providing manual interventions, cutting and pasting between systems, cleaning the data, handling exceptions, and so on. By using robotics, the manual interventions, most of them, are automated. We say most because there are still things at which humans are better. Pattern recognition or indexing handwriting, for instance. That's why you'll still see some red elements. And because the robot's only producing clean data, the manual effort required between the analytics and the workflow is no longer needed either. Let me give you an example. Many businesses are trying to achieve some of the same benefits by doing big data programs. I was at a conference last month talking to enterprise architects who are running master data management projects. Their goal is a golden record. A single version of the truth, usable throughout their businesses. But for some, having up to 19 ERP platforms across 9 semi-autonomous business units, you can imagine that not many of them had any hair. They're each spending between 1.2 and 1.4 million euros buying the MDM software, and 3 to 4 times that to implement. I only have one question. Why? Because every step, task and keystroke performed by robot is recorded and auditable, and because the robots can put information into any system, This golden record is a byproduct of RPA and is therefore free. Yes, free. If RPA is provided as a BPO service as we do, implementation is very fast. You don't need armies of consultants, you don't need to change your technology regardless of how clunky it is, because the robots don't care, nor do they care how complex your processes are. We simply watch what the user does, program the robot to repeat it, and then when everyone is happy, the robots will do it forever and without error. I cannot stress enough the flexibility and speed of RPA compared to the classical change management monster of ERP systems, which are more interdependent and therefore less flexible. RPA can be implemented and fully scaled in weeks, as we did with our biggest customer. Let's look at an example of how it works in practice. What you're seeing here is an order as it moves from our proprietary workflow system to the robotics platform. The robot is checking the order, pulling data from the different legacy systems, checking the billing and delivery addresses, bank details, and then there are no duplicate orders. It then moves back to the workflow platform, the user checks there are no exceptions, and hits go. What previously took over 20 minutes now takes a few seconds. And by the way, we slowed that video down to about half speed so you could actually see it working. Impressive as this is, how has the company in this case benefited? Dell turns over $57 billion, but their order processing system is over 20 years old. They tried to change the system 6 times over this period, but every time the cost and risks were just too high. Instead, they threw bodies at the problem and had just under 1,000 full-time employees carrying out these transactions. They'd even moved 96% of these individuals to low-cost countries. We carved out the entire operation and in just 8 months achieved some quite startling results. A 53% reduction in headcount to 438 people, a 23% reduction in cost, an increase in quality to above 99%, and probably of most value, a 5% reduction in attrition as the remaining people are now doing higher value work. A couple of other live examples. For SAS, we took over its centres in Estonia and Sweden, which are responsible for fare distribution, that's F-A-R-E. This is critical to the profitability of airlines. If there are any mistakes, the airline is either uncompetitive if the fare is too high, or unprofitable if it's too low. As a result, the operation needed 2 people to do each transaction, one to do it and the other to check, and it had to be done for every single transaction. That is, until we rolled in the robots and achieved an instant 50% reduction in headcount needed. And at its extreme, for Humana, we've replaced 50 people in the US doing provider credentialing for this healthcare insurer with 1 robot and 1 person. That is a 98% reduction in manual work. We've just started working with an investment bank in Poland on securities processing and fund administration. And our other customers and prospective customers are in HR and procurement. They're doing clinical trials, customer service, billing, and claims processing. I know that you are continually under pressure from your boards and stockholders, as well as regulators and governments, to reduce costs and increase efficiencies, to do more with less. We have found that implementing RPA in pilots is a good, low-risk way for our customers to try it out. We are so confident that you will find it useful that we guarantee to be 20% cheaper than your existing costs. In fact, we cut a check for that amount on day 1 of the contract, which has provided our customers with instant ROI. Inevitably, this has led several to ask why they're holding on to the remaining stranded assets. And our answer is, don't. We'll take them from you. We've done it for Dell, we've done it for SAS, and we can do it for you. Which brings us nicely to what you should do next. Think about the processes where you have the largest number of people doing the most manual tasks and ask yourself 6 questions. What is the main input? How does the data arrive? Is it legacy systems or Excel spreadsheets or some other way? How much automation is currently used? Are there any macros or is it mostly manual? How many people work on the process? And bear in mind, it doesn't matter how geographically spread they may be. How complex is the process? How many steps do the users need to take? How many technology platforms or systems are involved? And finally, how long does the process take to transact? Once you have this information, follow this QR code, which will also be visible at the end of this video, to instantly calculate your potential savings. I believe that RPA-led approach to business will see an exponential growth in the coming months and years. But let's take a look at where it could potentially go in the future. True innovation in the outsourcing and shared services markets is vanishingly rare. Why? And why do your internal teams also struggle with innovation? Well, if you're weighed down by repetitive day-to-day tasks or chasing data to deliver reports on time, it's no wonder that strategic big thinking just doesn't happen. But there is no choice. We will all have to find new ways of doing things because, as Gartner has reported, 1/3 of all jobs are going to be automated by 2020. And yet there are still going to be things that the machines don't understand. As mentioned, handwriting is the main one. It won't be worth you or I using full-time employees to identify and index strings of numbers or difficult to understand postal addresses. We're now working on ways to get these micro-tasks transacted by men and women not connected with our companies. This is the very nature of impact sourcing, but sadly, that's a topic for another day. Ultimately, I see the smartest business leaders using RPA-driven services as a route to commercialize their shared service and GBS operations. And then we're not talking just about reducing the cost, but of creating an enterprise that can deliver frictionless processing whilst providing a financial return to both sides, creating what is in effect a zero-cost back office. Are you one of those leaders?